Scions of the Southland for Sunday, December 29th, our final episode before the start of the new year. It's a two-man booth today. Jack, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling, well, I guess mixed because I just came back from the women's basketball game, which was one of the greatest tech events I have been to, just total. And then I opened my phone as soon as I walk out and I see the Jimmy Carter news, and I was like, dang, great. It was, and both were at 100. Tech scored at 100 points, and Carter died at 100 years old, which was just a weird numerical symmetry in the moment. But it was a weird. I just had like a few moments of like, this is a weird thing to have in a very short span of time. Feeling these two very impactful things butting against each other in my brain and my heart at the time. But yeah, I guess in general, great. The sports end great on that side today. I mean Carter, Tech does get to claim Carter. I mean he did go to Tech before he joined the military, so maybe he didn't get his undergrad at Tech or anything like that. But still, it's an interesting day to be a Yellow Jacket, that's for sure.
Indeed, indeed. Let's pick up in terms of the sports universe, the wide world of sports, if you will, with the Birmingham Bowl. That was a couple of days ago on Friday, the 27th. Unfortunately, a 35 to 27 loss for Tech versus Vandy in Birmingham. A very rainy day. The
Yes,
game did include, I think it was like a 40-minute rain delay,
about
maybe an
45. Yeah,
hour.
yeah, about 45.
It went at a point in the game when it was pretty atrocious of a watch. You made the trip.
I did.
Give me some of your, before we get into the game proper, give me some, set the ambiance for me as
Yeah.
someone that didn't make the trip and just watched on TV.
Well, I mean, in general, it was awesome to see how many Tech people did make the trip. I mean, we noted this is the most convenient bowl game possible that isn't the Peach Bowl, um, or this year's national championship game if we were so lucky. But and it filled out. There was 33,000 people in the crowd, which is fantastic. Some from plenty of Vandy folks too, which is good. Was glad to see both sides come in and make the game. Wasn't the largest bowl attendance as I noted on Twitter. I think it was the fourth highest up until that point. I'm pretty sure the Colorado BYU game sold out in the Alamo Dome. Um, I was at the alumni tailgate beforehand. That was full. I was helping do check-in, and we had to stop taking walk-up registrations because we filled out. Like, couldn't hold any more people in the top golf floors that the alumni association was renting out, which was cool. President Cabrera was there. The band came and played. It was wet and everything like that, but I mean, it wasn't too bad of a thing when considering the top golf was literally across the street from Protective Stadium where the game was happening. So everything was kind of kept in pretty close, which is really nice. The stadium was, of course, being only 3 years old, was felt certainly felt a lot better than if we were going to be in Legion Field. Glad we were not playing in there, that's for sure. Um, but yeah, I mean the weather was whatever. I mean the I ended up leaving. I was carpooling with friends, so I did not stay once the game got paused for a little bit because I did not want to keep my friends wait too long. And I think a lot of people did the same. But no, I think just in the experience of a bowl game for what you could get, it was about as good as it'll get, I think, for Tech going to a bowl game. If the score sucked, whatever. I mean, this is a bonus. This is really a bonus round for us at this point. Um, so all things considered, I'm glad I was there. It was a good day. Glad we made the trip. I'm sure most other folks are glad they got to make the trip as well.
Yeah, and I'd heard from a couple other friends of mine that I-20 was basically packed cover to
Yep,
cover
yep,
getting
yep.
there, and then especially coming back once the game had ended at whatever hour of the night it did. It was
Hmm.
basically an extra 1.5 times travel time because of the weather plus the amount
It
of
was
Tech
so
fans that were
rainy.
driving back to
Yeah.
Atlanta.
The traffic
It was
plus
pretty rough.
how intense the rain was on I-20. Yeah, it took so much longer to get back. It was kind of like how it was when I was driving back from Athens, just like this entire wave of folks going on a two-lane road to get back. So
Yeah. Rough, rough. To your point about this being a free hit, like I totally agree, right? And I think I mentioned that when the bowl assignment came out. I hope I did because that's was my thought, and it does sound like copium saying this after the fact,
sure, sure.
after we know the result. But I think with the rosters being super in flux across the entire sport, right?
Right. Yeah,
With the portal being open right now and that being a complete mess. Um, I think that this result, given the situational factors, should not color your like macro level take on the
No, not at
program
all.
and where
Yeah.
it is in this era. Like my, this is the thing that I said in our writers room Slack earlier today is like making narratives out of bowl performances and bowl records, like at like a team or like a conference level, is very irresponsible.
Yeah, it's not.
Unless, of course, you're doing it against the SEC, in which case it's morally right.
It's
So, go ahead there.
objectively the right thing to do, especially when you're playing next to their office.
Yeah. So you should always make fun of the SEC,
Hmm.
except the actual Securities and Exchange Commission. Don't do that. But, if it's the Southeastern Conference, definitely make fun of them. But that being said, I think, and we'll do like a little bit of a program post mortem, excuse me,
Hmm.
after we talk about the game itself. But yeah, I don't. 8-5, 7-6. The line between those is so very thin.
Right.
It and like you can call it 7-5. I'm not gonna tell anyone. You're not gonna tell anyone. Like
We
it's
got to seven and
the
fives in the games that could get us somewhere. Basically, like we're not getting anything more by winning or losing the Birmingham Bowl. Um, I mean, to your point of like it's a bonus round. Yes, I know. I remember mentioning that the only way we like truly learn something is if we get demolished in this game because it was pretty much a lot of first team squads for both teams going out there. Like this was a rare
Mhm.
matchup where it wasn't like a third string. Like it was a true Diego Pavia versus Haynes King game as much as you could get with a decently regular amount of injuries and guys not playing, even for like a regular season tilt and stuff like that. So it was as good of a just okay, who are these teams kind of game, um, which felt like the game was going about as it should have gone up until that third quarter when things just got out of our control. I would say, and
Okay, so
but
let
for the
me let me paint a word picture for
okay,
everyone. Podcasting is a visual medium, of course. It is the third quarter. There are 2 minutes and 26 seconds left. Tech is down one to Vandy, right? It's 14-13. 2 minutes, 30, 26 seconds left. Third and six at the Vandy 48. Here's what the play-by-play read. Okay, so and on top of this, Vandy has a 58% win probability at this stage of the game, right?
yeah,
Diego Pavia pass incomplete to Alexander or Cedric Alexander. Penalty. Georgia Tech pass interference. Janelius Tatum.
phantom call,
15,
phantom call, phantom.
15 yards to the Georgia Tech 37 no play first down Vanderbilt. Next play from the first on first and 10 from the Tech 37. Georgia Tech penalty, unsportsmanlike conduct, 15 yards to the Georgia Tech 22 for a first down.
Is that the Brent Key one?
I assume so. First and 10 from the Georgia Tech 22. Diego Pavia pass incomplete to Junior Sherrill. Penalty, Georgia Tech holding Amari Harvey
Yep,
10 yards
yep.
to the Georgia Tech 12. No play, first down Vanderbilt. And then 3 plays later, Pavia, it's Eli Stovers for a 3-yard touchdown pass. It's 21-13 Vanderbilt, and Tech gets assessed. Tech decides to rough the kicker on the ensuing kickoff.
Oh man. Oh man.
So,
Yeah,
uh, so this is what like I've counted out 7 plays, and it only gets stupider from there.
it
Believe
really
me.
does. And that
You have
was
the
that.
kickoff from the 50.
Yep.
And then the immediate first play after by the way, on the kickoff, Tech decided to bring the ball out, which is ridiculous. I
Well, no.
complain about
So
this every single week.
it's because they squibbed it. They did not kick it in the air. They kicked it right at us to ensure that some clock would come off and that we had to do something with it because they knew they were that much closer to us on the field.
Okay, well, that makes me feel a little bit better, and I have to take back some slander. But still, it's an epidemic of kids taking kickoffs out of the end zone and not taking the 25 free yards. I believe this very strongly. It's one of my most Alpharetta dad takes. Just please, for the love of all that is good in the world, how many few things we do have, please take those touchbacks. I'm begging you. Anyway, to actually get back to the game, the immediate next play after the kickoff. First and 10 from the Tech 19. Haynes King pass intercepted. CJ Taylor returned for 22 yards to the Georgia Tech 11. And then 3 plays later, after a Diego Pavia and sportsmanlike conduct penalty. Uh, Pavia puts
Where he hilariously just gave the ball to a fan after the play. Like that was the unsportsmanlike, was he just threw the ball out
he
of the
just threw
field
the
of
ball into the
play.
stands.
Yeah, so funny.
So yeah, but 3 plays later on a 3rd and 6 at the Tech 20 at the Tech 7, he hits Quincy Skinner for a touchdown, and now it's instead of it being like 2 minutes ago, it was 2 game minutes ago, it was 14-13. It is now 28-13. And from what I understand, the Tech fans in the building, of which, like you
Oh
said,
my God,
there were
a lot.
a pretty significant amount, were giving the refs absolute hell.
Uh,
And like
yeah.
we don't generally we try to be a not a like a ref discussion, ref ball discourse podcast. Albeit I think whenever we say that, I'm about to say something that
Yeah.
is
I gotta feel like we did this after the Georgia game too.
and I know a lot of people. Okay, let me backtrack. I know a number of people that are pissed about 2 straight results to end the year being incredibly
Yeah. Yeah.
ref directed.
Hmm.
And I think if I'm setting the Georgia game aside, which believe me, it gets under my skin too, but if I set that aside for now, the officiating in this particular game seemed particularly atrocious
Yep.
to an
Yep.
extent where you can't like as an official, and again, you need to rein me in at some point,
Well, okay,
because
let's go.
at
Well,
some point.
let's go. Well, let's. You forgot. Actually, there's a play here we didn't mention that kind of kickstarts this whole cycle. It's when Tech has the ball before Vanderbilt gets the ball here, where there's a string of penalties. It's where they don't call kick catch interference on when
Oh, on the punt.
Bailey Stockton got outright tackled by a guy. The ref called that he was blocked, that the Vandy guy was blocked into Bailey. It
He's
was at
clearly not blocked into him.
it was at
Like,
best, was there contact? Yes. There was the faintest little touch on the back of that shoulder. Like there was no there is no way to discern that that guy got actual that there was enough energy thrown into the Vanderbilt guy that caused him to have to form tackle Bailey Stockton before he caught the ball. Or he wasn't even trying to catch the ball as a thing. So he gets tackled, but then also uh, Zachary Toby makes the mistake of downing the ball at the 2 yard line. They did not call the ball had been touched on the field. So instead of letting the ball bounce out, Toby landed on the ball and we had the ball at the 2. So we had a horrible field position. That was about 40 yards of field position that should have been different based on Stockton getting tackled around the 20-ish yard line. And we had the ball somewhere in the 30s, maybe low 40s, maybe on the yard line. Not too sure. But we had it on the 2 and we couldn't get out of that. And so we were in a field position nightmare that set up Vandy on that next drive. Um, that's where really people just got it. Were just losing their minds. They showed it on the video board too, and that was the second like
that's the dangerous part. You should not.
that was yeah.
This
They
is an
showed that on the
objective
board.
thing. Like
Yeah,
you should not
yeah,
be showing replay. Like there's a rule that you don't show replays of controversial plays
right.
in the stadium for this exact reason.
I'm told one
For
bottle
the
got
reason that
yeah,
that the crowd doesn't influence the refereeing decision.
right.
However,
It's so bad. It was so bad.
this isn't yes, like obviously we have a vested interest in the result of this particular play and therefore
Yeah,
the result of the entire game.
right.
However, I didn't watch the game live. I watched a replay earlier today, and I watched the couple of cut ups here and there, and especially with that play. And like you said, there is the faintest touch on
Mm-hmm.
the defender,
Mm-hmm.
but there's not enough even on slow mo. There is not enough momentum imparted
Not at all. Not at all.
that you
It's
could
so
that he
bad.
gets blocks in the returner, and also he's facing forward with his arms out.
Right.
Like that,
Yeah. It
it is
was
a
our.
missed call. It is
It.
plain and simple a missed call, and we have to be able to call a spade a spade. To
It's
the to
yeah.
the Also on top of this, and I'm sure the bowl staff do a really good job with organizing a lot of these things. But and this is a very rare request. Per Kelly Quinlan on
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, text or the media that was assembled there did ask for a pool reporter to provide questions to the officiating staff. But the bowl team, obviously, it's a rare request. It's
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 so
more
yeah.
common in soccer, but it's a
Yeah.
rare request in football. And the bowl team didn't know how to facilitate the request. And by the time that they had figured it out, the officials had left the arena. So
Yeah.
couldn't really get any sort of clarity on why they called something the
Mhm.
way that they did. And obviously, like this gets into do you ask like how do you ask these questions so that you get actually good answers, which
Right. It's so complicated.
neither here nor there.
Yeah, it barely ever happens, as you mentioned. Like this is not a normal thing in football. I remember hearing some Atlanta United writers talk about how they do that regularly for MLS refs. For that's a whole other
Yeah,
conversation we have had many times elsewhere. But yeah, in the moment, that just was it just made Tech's crowd a ticking time bomb, which was what was super funny. That wasn't on TV was when they would cut to like in during the commercial entertainment that was going on inside the stadium. The PA guy asked, or the MC was like, "Are y'all having a good time?" And the entire crowd just erupts in boos, just fully. And the guy just
oh,
couldn't didn't know what to do for a second because it was so loud how many people were booing in the moment. That just because
that's pretty good.
no one was having a
That's
good time in the moment at all. Um,
I will say like I think they're if I'm being objective and I'm relying on sort of that typical idea of like mental toughness and not letting the refs like the refereeing decisions get to you. And yes, this is going to sound mean, but Tech as a team kind of lost its collective mind
no, they
after that
absolutely did.
sequence.
They did. No, that's absolutely the case. And it's, I mean, to be fair, this is a very hard moment to even keep your cool in. Like Brent, and this
Oh
was, I mean,
yeah.
and there was bad calls in the first half. There was a double face mask where Burrell got called for a face mask, and then he got face mask, and they didn't call Vandy's reciprocating face mask on the same play, and that set up a whole string of stuff. Um, and so I mean, yeah, it was just at that point it was a ticking time bomb kind of thing because
It just got really chippy,
it kept
right?
compounding and compounding and compounding, and I mean, if you I mean, you just watch some replays of what came out of Brent's mouth that I won't repeat here on the podcast. You can tell what that dude's saying, very evidently, to the refs in the moment. That's why he got it on sportsmanlike conduct penalty because that dude
You can't
was,
say a naughty to the refs, but sometimes you gotta let one loose.
yeah, it's got, yeah. So I mean, I blame them? No, it's a bowl game that does not matter to the outlook of this season or the end of or next season. Really, it was a weird game. Weather ended up playing a factor. Vandy, for what it's worth, they showed up. Pavia's a really freaking good quarterback and a really scrappy quarterback, and I mean that makes sense why Bama lost to them. Like Pavia, if Pavia is on, he is a really tough to deal with, and our defense, as we saw against Georgia and against other teams, like when we're down, when our depth isn't all the way there to prevent mistakes against quarterbacks like Diego. We saw this against Castellanos last year at Boston College. So uh, they had a game plan that could have worked against, that was for the most part working against us. I mean, yeah, you save some if the refs don't just destroy our momentum and just take us completely out of the game. Who knows what this looks like? Again, it was a 1 point game before the
I
calls
mean,
really
it's
started
it's a
going.
14-point swing, right? In
It
that in
really
that
is,
moment,
yeah.
effectively
And
within two
that's
minutes.
yeah, and that's really hard to come back from it in one quarter. If this was in the second quarter, we're talking a different game here, where it's like, okay, you can get two stops, still have plenty of time to score and have long, good possessions. But this was, you had, we got some garbage. I mean, we did get two garbage time touchdowns when it was all said and done. I
But
missed
again,
the,
garbage.
yeah,
It's game state, right?
yeah,
It is
we did. Well,
defenses are going
we
to
had
scheme different, play different.
two garbage time touchdowns and a chance with an onside kick to actually get the ball back down 8 with like a minute and a half and a timeout left. But Aiden Bird just rocketed it through the sideline, which I mean, onside kicks are not common for us. We haven't really done that, so I'm not no blame to Burr if that's probably not something he has to practice all that often. So yeah,
Yeah,
overall, yeah,
I think like in this game, and I guess you're about to say it, but like overall in this game, I felt like Tech avoided mistakes for the most part this season. They
yeah,
avoided shooting themselves in the foot for the most part this season, but they always threatened to do it. Like there's always the like thought, like a voice in the back of your head. It's like, oh, like this could compound, or if they don't get this particular call, or they don't get
yeah,
this
yeah,
particular, they don't win this particular moment, things kind of go by the wayside. And I think all of that, especially with obviously the referee involvement, like all of that sort of compounded in one go, right?
yeah,
In one game.
right.
You have the couple of picks from Haynes King. You have Tech putting the ball on the ground 4 times. Obviously,
Right. Now
two.
we got really lucky on that. I mean, I don't know if you saw, but like we had two fumbles that just went straight to our lineman, just in midair. Like just super fortunate that the ball landed where it did in the moment.
Right. And Tech had 3 sacks on the day in a season in which they had in the regular season in which they had six total.
Right, super
Right.
uncharacteristic, super uncharacteristic.
Right. And so I think it was just a lot of those weaknesses, and that there's like a level of credit to Vandy, other than the fumbles, obviously, but there's a
Yep,
level of credit to Vandy for actually forcing some of these mistakes, getting pressure
yep, yep,
on what has been a really solid offensive line, and King, and it all sort of it sucks just from a time and narrative perspective that all of these things came to a head in the last game of the season in like a narrative in what some people might use as a narrative defining game
right.
for the season. And it's again like we don't have to think about this game, right? We don't have to think about 7-6. We can always think about 7-5. Um, but it does suck, right? It does suck. Even if it's a
Yeah,
free hit, it does suck to lose
yep,
this kind of moment.
yeah. I think that's fair. I did see like for PFF grades, it was our worst game all season, which I mean kind of tracks. There was some. I mean, Rutherford lost a fumble pretty badly. Ball just got punched out on a drive where we really had a shot to get something done. The interception, not good. Um, Sacks, not amazing. We allowed a lot of Toby was targeted a ton by Pavia. They got multiple big passes going on one-on-one coverage against him. Which again, he's not usually supposed to start. Like, Rodney Shelley's hurt, and Burrell it was only on can't play two sides of the field at the same time. Um, so you kind of you have to play with the hand you're dealt at the moment. I will note offensively, I think not having Rutherford did matter because that eliminated a serious downfield threat that we could have had. It's kind of the only guy King ever really shot the ball far towards. That also eliminated our normal. We always ran that jet sweep play with him at least once or twice a game too, and
Singleton, you mean Singleton?
Singleton, yeah,
Sorry.
Singleton, yeah, Singleton, and that was not having that it is one or two plays, but still, that's a crap ton of speed not on the field in any given moment. So that certainly hurt us. I mean, we knew it was probably coming. I mean, I'm glad we had Rutherford, even though Rutherford fumbled. I'm still glad we had him because it still was a valuable asset to have out there. We got some Isaiah Canyon action. We got some Bailey Stockton action. Rylan Goody got his first ever touchdown in his final career game, which was cool to see. But Bailey Stockton got his first touchdown. So there's plenty, still stuff that's positive to look at. But yeah, in the end, I think I am not putting much weight on this game. I wanted to win, yes, because God damn it, we lost the cowbell after 61 years of having the cowbell. Um,
People were
but
very upset about look, all these games are independent events. Streaks are not. I mean, like, there's one streak that does bother me. The rest of them, I could not care
That's fair. That's fair.
less.
I don't like losing things that have been in a closet in the Edge Athletic
No, there's a
building.
good narrative to. I mean, like
Yeah,
a lot of the things that suck about this are like longer scale or like larger scale narratives,
right, right.
right?
And I think I saw a couple folks on Twitter just talking about yesterday. Like you have to like not calling the season a success is, and we'll get to this is I call it heretically selective or just uninformed uh to call this season anything but a success in the grand scheme of things right now.
Okay,
Uh,
so I have a lot of thoughts on that because I did do
you
a
did
bit of a
you did do a lot
postmortem
here.
in our document, but why don't we take a quick break, do some podcast business, and then we'll come back and talk about the season as a whole.
As I sit here, I'm looking at my brand new Section 103 Ramblin' Wreck hat, trucker hat, which is so freaking cool. It's got an elastic waistband, headband, and it is a adjustable cap, which is kind of his best of both worlds in that regard. It doesn't have that super tall front. Steven absolutely knocked it out of the park with the hats. I saw many Section 103 hats at the alumni tailgate and at the game, which was awesome. You can still get plenty of good merch. If they do this thing now with do like a transfer portal insurance, so if there is a player on there that has left tech that they have merch for, you can get it at a discounted price. It's still good tech merch nonetheless, and the fabric always feels good. So, and they have the Brent Key cutoff and a bunch of other stuff. Um, and I want to say they have the baseball script shirt as well for when baseball season rolls around, which is in 2 months. Good lord. But yeah, and there's still some hats available, and the Brent Key hats will be back. I want to say next month. You can get 10% off using code FTRS and get free shipping for any order over $80. Tech's going to play some ranked teams in sports coming up, and usually that results in a little bit of a discount if we win those games, as they did when Tech beat Nebraska recently. Or no, when they beat Nebraska, when they beat North Carolina in women's basketball. So you never know down the line. Section103.com is where you can find it. or just see Steven on Twitter.
Jack, it's time for a postmortem.
Woo.
I dumped a bunch of stuff in our document about the 2024 football season. I know you were out writing women's basketball preview and or recap, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But let's talk about the season as a whole, as a bundle,
Mm-hmm.
as a discount double check. The A 7-6 final record, we'll call it 7-5 between friends, started in SP plus in August at 65th. On a neutral field, that would be point 0.3 better than the average FBS team, scoring margin wise. In the last SP Plus update that I could find from the 22nd of December, Tech finished 58th. That would be 3.7 points better than the average FBS team on a neutral field. In terms of second order wins, so that's all the post game win expectancy numbers added up for the entire season. Tech posted a 6.1 or a 6.2 second order wins mark, excuse me. So they slightly overperformed at 7 total wins. Jack, who is your team MVP for 2024?
Oh, I mean Haynes, duh. Like
Okay,
if
well,
it's
again, there's two
yes,
Haynes, so
the
you're gonna
the,
have
the
to pick
quarterback one,
one.
the quarterback one, the quarterback one,
Okay.
Definitely the quarterback one. I mean
All
that's
right, walk me through this.
it. I mean,
I mean,
well,
I know I have a similar answer. My answer is
right,
the same, and I have
right.
a
Uh,
explanation, but I want to hear it from you.
my one philosophy as someone who has never played a down of football and has only coached middle school football for one season in Decatur, Georgia, is that you can never have enough quarterbacks, which uh, does grant a lot of credit to Aaron Philo and to Zach Pyron in their moments of greatness. But um, if you have a quarterback, it enables so much more. And there's a reason they win all the MVP awards at the NFL and usually win the Heisman Trophy, save for rare cases like this year with Travis Hunter and pick your Alabama running back that exists. Um, I mean, that dude it was the heart and soul of this team in so many ways. It gave us life in so many ways. It's the program hasn't been the same since he showed up. You can have Singleton can be great, but it doesn't matter if you don't have a guy that can get the ball to him. Jamal Haynes can be great, but it doesn't matter if you know it's going to go to him every single freaking time. Because King can do a myriad of stuff, and I mean, yes, he didn't play some games because of injury, but when he was on the field, he was a He was the most important net positive we have total. Um, I wish that we had a defensive we wish we had like a defensive tackle that was sacking dudes all over the place that was making me rethink this, or someone like Calvin or something like that. But no, I mean I think everyone would agree. It's hands down Mr. King, and it's a glorious thing to know that he's coming back next year. Him and Philo are coming back next year.
Jack, I don't know if you've looked at the game on paper passing tables recently. I
I
really
saved
hope
it.
you haven't.
I saved that for you. I may diddle around the site every once in a while.
Okay, well, I don't know if you've. Okay, I wouldn't use that particular verb, but I pulled up the passing table just now.
Yep.
Where do you think Haynes King sits? If you rank this table by EPA per dropback, what rank is Haynes King in the nation out of all quarterbacks?
I do know the
Well,
answer to that. Well,
qualified
I mean
quarterbacks.
I do know the answer to this. Um, I would
Oh, I sent it yesterday, didn't I?
Yeah,
Dang
you
it.
did. He's at 0.32 expected points added per drop back, which is really freaking good. Good enough for fourth in the nation, I believe.
Fifth. It is
Fifth.
fifth.
Okay.
The four quarterbacks ahead of him, Curtis Rourke, playoff quarterback, Cam Ward, LOL, Will Howard, playoff quarterback, and Jackson Dart,
Almost
which I
playoff
guess
quarterback.
in Lane's dreams, I guess.
Yes.
But yeah, those are and they're he's not super far behind Jackson Dart at 0.33, a little bit more separation to Will Howard at 3.5,
Hmm.
Ward at 3.6, and Rourke at 4.0. Obviously, those are just dropbacks, right? So that's
Right.
sacks, picks, normal pass attempts, and we don't split out scrambles just because that's not in the ESPN data. If
Right.
you're looking at if you so he has 0.32 just on the ground, and then if you tack
Hmm.
on his rushing number,
Look at the
it
same
gives you
thing.
0.21 of value, 0.21
So good.
EPA per rush
So good.
of value on the ground. So he is, for lack of a more descriptive term, he is kind of a dual threat, like a true dual threat quarterback for Tech.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I've really appreciated and at times has been immensely frustrating to me in particular, the playbook this year has been built to maximize his strengths and also limit his weaknesses and sort of
Right.
control those controllables. Right. I
Right.
think last year, one of the things that we saw is that Tech really wanted to air it out and stretch the field. And King just doesn't have the arm to do that, right? There's a
Yeah.
limited range. It's like trying to hit a drive in the Tiger Woods EA games, right? As once you start going outside of the range meter of the
You're right.
club,
Right.
it'll
It'll
go
get
every which way,
exactly,
right?
exactly. Same with Wii Sports.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, and
and
that was a concern. Like he had those like interceptions were a concern for him. He had a few in that first last year. His first full run, it was like, okay, this was somewhat of an issue there. Granted, his arm obviously not fully healthy this year, and his shoulder, which impacts throwing speed. And as soon as we saw Philo gun a ball 80 freaking yards, it was like, oh, okay, I see what we have here. But to your point, yeah, it's like they interception opportunities were far fewer this year. Like a lot of
right,
those were short yard passes.
and a lot of that, like you said, short yard passes, he gets the ball out really quickly. If you look at some of those PFF like pressure to sack ratio versus time to throw charts, he's minimizing the amount of time that he takes to throw the ball and get the ball
Hmm.
out, and he's
Yep.
just the offensive line allowed 9 sacks total, with three of those coming in the bowl game. All
Yeah.
right, and we'll talk about the offensive.
Ignore.
I have a
Yeah, yeah,
little
yeah,
bit
go
of a
on.
hit on the offensive line as well, but like yes, it sucked that he wasn't healthy. Honestly, he was not healthy most of the year. I think we can be honest about that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
whatever injury was bothering him, it spiked in aggressiveness right at like a pretty critical point in the season versus VT and versus Notre Dame and
Yep.
some of that
Yep.
middle stretch. But I think between him, the offense, like Buster Faulkner, Chris Winkie, and Brent Key, like that sort of offensive leadership group sounds weird, but that the play
Yeah.
calling group understood, okay, we need to limit his mistakes, and we also need to maximize what he can do with both his arm and with his legs.
Right.
And so they just got a lot better at understanding how to build around him for his strengths and weaknesses. And also he's a warrior, right? Like
Right.
he
That's the big
suits
thing.
up for that
Yeah.
Miami game and he suits up for the Georgia game and just takes hit after hit after hit from really tough defenses with an upper body injury and just keeps on rolling.
It's
Right. And
nuts.
especially
Yeah.
in that Miami game where they were interchanging between him
Literally.
and
Yeah.
Philo every other play basically and using one of them to throw and one of them to run. And then the Georgia game was a little bit more mixed. And so they were able to play the two quarterback game well.
Hmm.
But also like there's some credit there too, where he understood, right? Hey, like I am not 100% healthy, and this guy is going to help us win games too.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
No, I
he
think.
was
Yeah.
there was a level of humility there and where he's saying, okay, well, I am the starting quarterback, but I can't do everything on the field. Let's try to recreate this in the aggregate, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The fact we had three. With we found out midseason that we had three quarterbacks that were like, okay, we know something good can happen with any of them out in the field, and they're a healthy bunch in terms of like relationally, and they enjoy playing together, and they like are not trying to step on each other's toes. Like that's huge. Like that is exceedingly rare to get in college football right now. Like the idea that the fact that both King and Philo are coming back speaks massive, massive credence to Chris Weinke and Buster Faulkner and their ability to just be like, just to and Brent Key too, just be like to give them a place where they feel like they can thrive and succeed and not have to go out on their own and do something. Like they want to do this here together, which is huge. I mean, I don't fully expect us to do that Miami strategy a lot next year. Where we're playing both Philo and King. I mean, Philo also knows like there is nothing bad that can come from being under King and Weinke and Faulkner for one more year developmentally, which is a big deal, especially if he has NFL aspirations and stuff like that. So I mean, all like that's of the things that give me hope for 2025 is like one of the best quarterback rooms, bar none, in the country right now.
I
Yeah.
I mean, I would hesitate to go that far because I think scheme again, they're not
Scheme
it's
is
not a
scheme is
talent
something.
thing, it's a scheme thing, right? It's And a
Well,
lot of the
you need
credit,
both. You need both to win football games. So
right? I don't know. The thing for me, I think, is that and again, like the playbook at times like really frustrated me because that's the thing that I wanted to see is right. I want to see them uncork some of the deep shots and make make defenses guard like both stack the box and
yeah,
have to
yeah,
defend
yeah,
out wide and be multifaceted in that way.
yeah.
But they were able to do that in different ways, right? Like they ran off tackle a lot. They ran that jet sweep play with Eric Singleton a lot. They tried to
Hmm.
design option plays and RPOs and make and try to like generate unbalance or imbalance in those offense or defensive fronts in a lot of different ways from a schematic perspective, and for the most
Yep.
part, it worked, right?
Yeah.
And that's why King especially was so successful. I think to the point about the offensive line, which to be fair, this was an extremely good offensive
So good.
line and an
So good.
extremely real like especially if you put it in the context of the last couple of years.
I may have been
Um,
my philosophy. You can never have enough quarterbacks or good offensive linemen. Like,
Oh, I agree.
yeah.
Especially on the offensive line. Check this out, by the way. These are all from ESPN. Tech had 9 total sacks in 24, including the bowl. 15 sacks allowed in 23,
Hmm.
39 sacks allowed in 22, and
Woo!
33 allowed in 21.
Oh my
So
God.
the improvement after Brent Key took over the team full time has been
Massive.
pretty stark.
Yeah.
Right. And to be fair, some of that is on the quarterback too. I think what we know about sacks and how they're generated, especially from pressures, is that sack avoidance and sack generation, being that both of them are on the same spectrum, are a quarterback stat and something that a quarterback affects. So some
Yeah.
of the credit also has to go to King for getting the ball out super quick.
Hmm.
He only took 3 sacks all year. So he has to get some credit there. But against talented pass rushes, Tech did really well, right?
Yep.
Regardless of who is
Yeah.
behind in the pocket, behind center, like they still did really well up front. So
Yeah.
I think credit has to go to both of those units.
I want to do one fly through the schedule just to kind of give some sort of narrative here of just like where we started and where we came from. Of that, I know beginning of the year, our consensus was 6 wins with this schedule is a victory. Like we know this was going to be hard. We know we got the 6 last year with via some very fortunate bounces and some decision making by my Cristobal. Uh, but that we had the group to at least get the 6. Like, we thought we can get the 6 again with some probably just going to lose those games. Don't worry about it. Get the rest of them. We beat Florida State in Ireland. Didn't see that one coming. In hindsight, we absolutely should have won that game pretty handedly, considering how Florida State ended up. Win the Marble Bowl, lose by 3 to Syracuse. Granted, garbage time touchdowns get us into a 3-point game. I think that's when Jamal Haynes also started having some was starting to get hurt as well, so we were limited in the run game. Lose that by 3. Kyle McCord also freaking amazing. Like, and we just had defensive issues
Very, very good.
all over the
Very,
place,
very good,
defensive
by the
issues
way.
there, and they had some really large wide receivers. So like understandable in a sense. Beat VMI, fine. Louisville, the first game where we lose 31-19, but that's that first game where you get compounding self-sabotage mistakes that really cost us. Like that's when I think even though the number 19 in the country, it was on the road, that that was a winnable game for us. But a loss also doesn't kill you in that moment because it was game 5 of the season. We beat Duke, knocked their undefeated streak away with Malik Murphy. Go into North Carolina, should have beat them better more than we should, but thank goodness Jamal Haynes ran for a gazillion yards to win the game in the final seconds. Um, that is the game where King stops playing. Pyron ends up finishing that game for Tech, and then Pyron has to play against Notre Dame, where he also gets kind of hurt as well as Notre Dame kind of manhandles us. I think that was at that point a schedule loss more than anything. So I'm not in no way in hindsight concerned about how that game ended up. Virginia Tech game, lose 21-6. That's when you really want back, except for the fact basically the athletes of Tech were all sick that week. There was a stomach bug going around, and so our guys were sick on the field in Virginia Tech. Our volleyball players, I know, were sick that weekend with stomach bugs and flu-like symptoms. So we were already shorthanded walking into the building that day. So I put a massive asterisk on that game at this point. Like that is not a
And on top of that, I think it took the staff a little bit too long to hit the Aaron Philo button in that game.
Exactly. I
Which
agree. I
because
agree.
once he came in, like yes, I think the big problem with Aaron Philo, and I don't know if this is a problem, but the big thing with Aaron Philo is that he only throws fastballs. He
That
has,
we noticed this.
th
We noticed
bless
this.
him,
Yes. Yes.
bless him. He has no touch, but everything is pinpoint accurate, right?
It was. I mean, there was a couple deep balls where we're just like, oh my God, we have not seen a man throw a ball that far in a Georgia Tech uniform since Justin Thomas. Like it was insane to
Yeah.
see what he was doing. So,
But like
yeah,
it takes them way too long to hit that button, and it was very clear that, especially in that
yeah.
first half of that game, that Zach Pyron was not going to be
Right. Our
effective
defense,
that day.
that was also a game where our defense really stepped up. We started seeing some changes and like that was I remember we were talking a lot about that. Like, let's not forget the defense made us leap in this game, but that's giving us reason to believe we can win the next week, which we did against Miami, where we win by 5. It felt like we won by more, honestly, emotionally, because we pretty much ran that game. We kind of ran all over them that game. Cam Ward made some mistakes as well. But the goalpost ended up in the president's mansion, and that was one of the best days in Tech history in the 21st century. Then we barely beat North Carolina State by 1. Then on that next Thursday, Philo has to leap in the end zone to win that game. That one's a kind of that classic ACC trap game, but we got over that, which I think is huge. Like that is not a game. That is a game that we have suffered in time and time again, and we didn't in
Yeah.
this game. We actually won that game and guaranteed bowl eligibility that day, or at least it secured 7 wins that day, which as much that was huge. I think that was the big moment there was to get the 7 wins. Georgia was Georgia. I mean, I think right now I sit in the mode of we should have. There was things we could have done to still take that out of the referee's hands and win that game outright, especially when you have multiple opportunities in overtime to just outright win the game. But same for Georgia, so it's like whatever. And then this game, the refs shot us in the foot. So,
I
um,
felt my blood pressure go up like looking at the score of this game, so I don't want to talk about that one more than I have to. I'll
no.
say um, for the NC State one, I have the SP plus adjusted margins, the post-game win probability
Mm-hmm.
pulled up for the NC State one, especially considering that they had a like a pretty good chance to win that game on the
They
last
did.
drive.
They
A
did.
9.1% post-game win expectancy with a with a 10-point margin, adjusted scoring margin that favored NC State. So it was a
Yes, that's
close
right.
shave.
They did have a 51-yard field goal attempt,
To be fair, it was a
59-yard field goal attempt to win the game at the end of
it
the
was a
game. They missed.
59-yard field goal with a
Yeah.
college kicker with the wind, and he did not miss by all that much.
No, no, that we were
Um,
talking about that in the right in the press room after. Is on t. It was so hard to tell from where our vantage point was, but it looks like it was left pretty much the whole time. But anyways, uh,
no,
yeah,
on the TV angle, I mean, I thought he had it until it dips left, right at like basically the last. I'd have to
yeah.
go back and watch it.
Anyway,
It's
doesn't
been
matter.
a
We won the
month
game.
a month
Yeah,
at
yeah,
this point.
we won the game. Who cares? Uh, so
Yeah. The Miami one, 64% win post game win expectancy, a 2.9 scoring margin. I think these last f three games, right? It's where it got really frustrating in that fourth quarter because it was consistently like the defense was gassed or something was going on game state wise where
mhm.
these teams were not put away. Um, Especially in that fourth quarter versus Georgia, which again, I feel my blood pressure rising, so I want to, come in and out here. NC State, I think NC State is also a really good example, right? NC State basically gets let back in that game in the back door with like a 21 point fourth
Yeah,
quarter.
yep, yep, yep,
Miami, there are two really quick drives by Cam Ward, led almost entirely by Cam Ward
yep,
late in that game that
yep,
really put the really got a lot of people turtling in the stadium that day.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
it was weird to come off of that Virginia Tech game, right, where I think one of our major talking points was for Tech's defense kept the offense in the game. The offense could do
no,
nothing, right?
nothing,
It
nothing.
just
Yeah,
like absolutely nothing.
yeah,
Um, and to the defense's credit, in the first halves, like the first 75% of all the three remaining games from that point, they did really, really well.
yep, yep,
It's just that it was three consecutive games in which in the fourth quarter, some whatever reason, right? I'm not going to
yep,
ascribe a cause to it. I don't watch the tape, or I haven't watched the tape particularly closely. But some adjustment gets made, and they just start,
yep.
leaking points in that fourth quarters in those
Right.
fourth quarter scenarios. And so,
My
I,
last note on the schedule as a whole. Remember at the end of Miami game. we were driving to burn clock, and Singleton had a run play, and he did not go in the end zone to keep the clock running. We could have scored 35 in this game and didn't voluntarily, just to make sure we milked clock. So that was, in the moment, could have been a much larger win than what the scoreboard shows. And big that was the big Romello Height moment when he cut the fumble on Cam Ward. Our 1 year of Romello Height that did pretty darn well in that moment. So I'll take
Yeah.
what we got from him in that moment.
I think one more point, and you brought this up when we were recapping the Louisville game, but those first 5 games, right, were all in sequence. They were week after week after week,
Yep,
and there
yep,
was
yep,
one that
yep.
I mean the first game of the season was also on an off day or something or other.
Week 0, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so you had one team in that game that was playing 5 games in a row, and Louisville, who had 2 bye weeks in the
It was
first
so weird. Yeah,
first
I
five
mean,
weeks of the season, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's some rest advantage here. There's some defensive fragility in there, some weird results, some bounces that don't go Tech's way, right? But ultimately, 6.2 second order wins, right? If you add up all the post game win expectancies, an improvement of a field goal and change in terms of SP plus versus the average opponent, which is I think 58 is one of the highest marks that I've seen Tech have in the last
Oh
five or
yeah,
6 years,
yeah.
right? Obviously, the Jeff Collins era was aside.
Mhm.
Um, it was it's hard to sit here and say, talking about expectations, it's hard to sit here and say, even for me, and I tend to be the pessimist out of all 3 of us with regularity. It's hard to say that Tech did not exceed expectations. Whatever your baseline expectations for the season was, and even if you say, okay, you're going to be a curmudgeon, which I am, and say Tech is going to push at the over under of 5 wins or go under at 4. And if you look at the Kelly Ford preseason rankings too, Tech was going to win 2 or 3 ACC games. I think it was basically evenly split in the
Mhm.
probabilities between 2 and 3 ACC games.
Yeah,
Um, like if those are your worst case scenarios, Tech obviously wins 7 total football games and then
hmm,
5 conference games, right? And so
yep,
um, it is a unqualified success of a season that built on a highly chaotic 2023, but in a
hmm,
more sustainably successful way. Yeah, obviously
yes,
there's
yep.
a couple of weird results in there, right?
That's gonna
The
happen. That is going to be college football forever, and no team can.
yeah,
Very few teams ever will ever escape the weird results, even if you're a national title contender.
right. But I don't have the second order wins number from last year, and I wish I did because that probably makes my point a lot better. But I think the second order wins last year was the overperformance was actually much higher. Like a point 0.8 overperformance is not it's not that big of a deal, right?
Yeah,
Like it's not a rounding error, right? It's almost one full win, but it's not like the 2 full wins or whatever it was probably last year. And in this game, like I mean, Tech did really well. It's
yeah,
it's hard to it's hard to sit here and be like wholly upset, like frothing at the mouth, frustrated.
yeah.
Uh, but what is frustrating, and what I will admit and validate for a lot of people, is that they won 7 games. Eight was totally in reach
Hmm.
at the end of 8 overtimes. 9, you don't have to squint super hard to see 9 if you
Not at
pick
all.
one of Syracuse and Louisville. And you don't have to squint super hard at that point to see 10 if you pick the other of Syracuse and Louisville,
Yep.
right?
Or the bowl game too. Well, I
Or
guess
the bowl game,
we wouldn't be
right?
playing in this bowl game if we got one of those back, probably too. But anyways,
Right, but I mean, on the flip side of that, like you could have seen 6,
6, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And
Six
you
was six
also
was
could have
doable.
seen 5 very easily.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
And that's been a lot of the, and it wasn't like super random how we got to those games either. I think was nice knowing as a Tech fan is like, okay, no, they are. It is not. There was far less dumb luck that went our way. It was like, no, we played our way into the situations that set us up to win.
I mean,
Um,
like the dumb luck in the schedule, especially looking at the results, it's like the only dumb luck one was probably NC State, right?
I mean, I would say Georgia based off some human error also at the same time, but I mean that's
Right, but like we're talking about in terms of dumb luck wins, right?
okay. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
dumb
right,
luck
yeah,
wins, like
yeah.
the only one that you can say, okay, they really had a close shave here
Yeah,
was
is
NC
that.
State, right? The 9.1%
But
post
even
game
then,
win
it wasn't like
expectation.
weird play or whatever that like last year, where it
The
was like
game
no,
was in hand, and they just had a
yeah,
terrible fourth quarter.
we still had to like play our way into winning that game. So I was like, yeah, no, I think that's my another bit of hope for next year is like, okay, this team is going to get better in the transfer portal. Um, I mean, I was looking today. I saw something today of like two of the teams that had some of the biggest incoming transfer numbers last year are in the playoff this year. Indiana being one of them. So I mean, you can actually get better pretty sizably year over year in the portal. And this was last year was the okay, we actually know what we're doing here. This year was the prove it year that we really knew what we were doing. And there is a plan for success here that could help you get better, and that's happening. Um, so in the recruiting class, as we've mentioned time and time again, is freaking amazing relative to our past. We have a five-star offensive lineman coming in next year in Josh Petty. This team allowed 6 regular season sacks, and we got a five-star offensive lineman coming in. Uh, that's not a normal thing you get to say about Georgia Tech football. So yeah,
And I think it's best for us not to like go in and start trying to do like look at the schedule and do our
that's
usual
next year
song and
problem.
dance.
That's
Like we
25 months.
have
Yeah, that's next year's problem.
that's something we can come back to in August. If you like, what's your final word on the season? Like,
Oh
if you
man,
had to put it in a sentence, I know exactly what I want to say
I'm
again
gonna.
because I prepared for this. But final like final sentence, final word on the season.
Oh man, I write a tweet this year about this. I may not have written a tweet about this. Oh darn it, I didn't. I mean, the our path to being better is not going to be a straight line. Do not get caught up when things seem to be headed downwards because it is arcing up, and uh, yeah, things are working well. I think we should.
All right, I have a okay. Now that I think about it, I have a serious answer and a meme answer. Which one do you want first?
Uh, the meme first.
I never want to see an overtime game ever again in my life. College
I,
football overtime should be completely banned.
with these rules,
We
I
are
agree.
ending with ties.
With these
I'm
rules,
not watching a single one ever again. Ever again.
I'll take the
It's
NFL rules, but anyways,
my I'm again blood pressure increasing.
continue.
The serious answer, and I think you raised a good point in that progress isn't linear. But I think the thing like 4 or 5 years ago, when we're in the death throes of Jeff Collins and his merry band of fools, the the thing that I wanted to see from Georgia Tech football is like can be summarized very simply as just don't embarrass me,
Yep,
right?
we're
And
way
I
past that now.
think
We're so far
and
past that now.
I think this season is not like a hey, Georgia Tech is good, but a hey, Georgia Tech is aggressively competent,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And I think it under like I think that's something that they saw last year, and now that they've reined in the volatility and reined in that variance a little bit, the error
Mm-hmm.
bars are a little bit more inside. They haven't
Mm-hmm.
got like these that again we talked about. There's not as many freak wins. They are aggressively competent. I think that is good to see.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't want to watch an overtime game ever again in my life. I'm very over it. You can end in ties. Okay, Jack, anything else to talk about football wise? We're already at an hour and we haven't even talked about
We have women's basketball
basketball.
who deserves their own hour. I guess I'll just mention men's basketball. They won 92 to 49 yesterday against Alabama A&M. Um, as you right here called me when they win a non-bye game. I agree. Uh, I mean, it's nice that they scored 92. We'll take that any day. But yeah, I mean, we have not seen anything yet to give us uh, consistent hope yet with Damon Stoudemire's
Speaking
team. So whew,
speaking of competence, oh boy.
I know. It's rough out there for the guys. Certainly wanted to get. We definitely wanted to get better, and well, we'll see what happens on New Year's Eve when they play Notre Dame, who we only play weird games against that are very close.
They've never played a normal fixture in
So
basketball. Never ever.
if you want an entertaining game in a either in probably a sickos manner with just how weird and just complexly bad the game is, yeah, you're probably gonna get that in this Notre Dame game. That's at two
Is that
thirty in the
Notre
afternoon.
Dame team good this
No idea.
year? Because
No
my
idea.
understanding is that they have not been after
I don't think
since
they.
Shrewsbury took over.
I don't think so. I know about their women's team though, and then we play on Saturday against Boston College at noon. Both of these games, I believe, are in McCamish Pavilion.
Yeah, both of
So
them are at home.
if you,
For
yep,
some reason, they're both on TV on like accessible networks.
that
I
is true. This is true. So if you want to go to
don't
these
ask
games,
me.
go
I
to
don't
these
make
games.
ESPN programming decisions, but that's not what the decisions that I would have made.
I might go to this Saturday game. Actually, probably not. I don't know. I can't go to the Tuesday game because I have work. Anyways, women's basketball. Holy crap!
Let's talk about women's basketball. The 13th. It's crazy every time the words come out of my mouth.
You
The
say
number
13th.
13.
When you listen to this, if you listen to this tomorrow, which will be Monday the 30th in all likelihood, there will be a new ranking posted at like noon. We may not be 13th when you hear this. It could be higher.
As of right now is 6:35 on Sunday. They are the 13th ranked women's basketball team in the country. They are 14 and 0 and 2 and 0 in the ACC. They just posted there, it's like 2 hours fresh, but they posted a 100 to 61 absolute drubbing of Pittsburgh in McCamish Pavilion in front of a pretty decent crowd for a
Mm-hmm.
holiday break.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I think we said this in our writers' room too. Pittsburgh is not great, and the announcers, Wiley Ballard, made a point to say this on the broadcast too. Pitt was projected to finish last in the ACC, I think, per
Yeah.
the coaches voting.
Yeah.
But look, turning any team into a 40-point margin skid mark is still pretty notable, and especially
Wild.
doing
Yeah.
it to a Power Four team. Again, even given the caveats, is still pretty remarkable, right?
Yeah. I was talking with Wes from Peachtree Hoops, who was at the game and the tech alum at the game, and I was really mentioning him like, yeah, like he's watched so much more tech basketball than I have, and he's like, yeah, this is the best team they've ever had since I started watching in this decade of watching the team, and they keep proving it. Like they kind of do it. I was like they feel like the Indy like not in a perfect match, but kind of how Indiana played their football schedule this year, where they just destroyed anyone who wasn't amazing in front of them, and then dealt with the teams that were good. Um, we're doing this. The tech, I mean, they're doing the same thing. Today was the 14th consecutive win. They have never won 14 straight games in program history. Like that's never happened. They've done 13 twice. They have never done 14, and they have done 14 convincingly every single time. No fluke wins.
Oh man, I have to pull up the Torvik page again, don't I?
Probably, probably.
It's such a fun watch. Like or
If
like
if
it's
this game
such a
isn't a
fun
one,
read through every
if the,
single time.
if today isn't a 100 on there, I'll be mad because
They're
they
up to 11, by the way, in the
on
Torvik
Torvik. Okay,
rankings.
that's up I think 3 spots from last year. So,
And
yeah.
they are second in wins above bubble at 3.6.
Okay, okay,
Um,
that's fantastic.
they're fifth in offensive adjusted offensive efficiency, 24th in adjusted defensive efficiency. It's a very, very good basketball team. I think this is going to be a stretch, but I want you to bear with me.
Okay, okay.
I was watching Liverpool versus West Ham this morning. It was a noon 15 kick
Hmm.
on USA. No free ads, but you get what I'm saying. Liverpool wins 5-0, but the thing that I think I like most about watching that team is that they always push the pace, right? It's
Yes,
always
yes,
direct.
yes.
They play back to front. Like that, even when they're building and they possess the ball, they're always looking for a killer pass. They're always
Exactly,
looking
exactly.
for a way to play direct and get the ball in the back of the net as soon as possible.
Yep, no, that
And
is,
they defend
yeah.
the same way too. They play super high. They generate turnovers super high. And again, they take those turnovers and turn them into goals. They try to turn them into goals very, very quickly.
Let
And
me
I'm
turn, yeah,
reminded,
I can turn all of what you just said into how this game panned out. That was perfect. 21 Pitt had 21 turnovers. We pressed them much. They detected a very good press today, better than they have recently than ever. There was like 5 or 6 times my jaw was just completely agape with how good of a back cut pass we did at some point, or just found wide open people on just such beautiful passing. Like they have nailed this to an extent. Granted, it's Pitt. They are not supposed to be a good ACC team. I will absolutely keep that in mind. It doesn't make the basketball any less beautiful though that we saw today. I cannot be like Turbis, super smart passing. Uh, Tony just driving to the bucket Russell Westbrook style, just taking all the contact and getting up there. Kara done at 28 points a game high, her season high. Danny Carnegie was 4 of 11 from three, had 24 points, her career high. She was a plus 31 on the floor today. Tony was a plus 33. Um, Chit Chat Right shot for 16 points. That might be her career high actually too. She had 4 threes as well. We were 16 of 18 from the free throw line. Like nothing wasn't working. The only thing that wasn't working is that Pitt had a big whose name is Kajija Faye, who was very good, and she scored 22. And kind of how with Nebraska had, I forgot their big center's name, but same. thing. Kind of had a problem with her, but it didn't really matter because we out physical Pitt, we out rebounded Pitt, we out assisted Pitt, we outshot like we out everything to them handedly. Like it was, we scored the first 7 points. I didn't feel like it was over when we were up 7-0. But I was like, oh, if this is how it's going to be, they are never going to catch us. Like they just could not catch us with how fast we would move the ball down the court. Um, in that respect, there's like 18 highlights they could show from this game about that are emblematic of all this we've just said.
Yeah, and I mean per Bartovic too. I mean they're only 87th in adjusted tempo, so they're still not moving as fast as they could be. But to my eye, and yes, it's a more of a naive basketball eye. Like I don't really know basketball as well as I might football or soccer or whatever. But that Liverpool analogy and the way that they push the pace in every game, they're always looking for a killer pass. They're
Yeah,
not just like sitting around and waiting for someone to make a move. They're always moving, always trying to combine. Like this is the kind of thing that I appreciate out of any team
right.
that
Yeah,
plays like a fluid sport, and it's just fun to watch.
I wonder how much
It's
of
just
that.
so fun to watch.
I wonder how much of that comes from the fact that we're usually winning by a bunch in the third quarter, and the fourth quarter doesn't require the same pace push. Like we scored by quarter, we scored 31, 22, 32, and then 15 in the fourth because we emptied the bench and didn't necessarily have to push all that hard in the fourth quarter. So I wonder if that matters at all in that calculation. Um, we
Yeah,
needed all,
again, like
yeah,
basketball stats,
whatever, yeah,
not
yeah,
necessarily my domain. It's like something we can do a little bit more research into.
yeah. That's a later thing. Nonetheless,
Yeah,
we got to 100 points. This is the first time we've done that since 2015 against Southeast Louisiana. The first time we've done that to an ACC opponent since 2008, which was Virginia, but that was a double overtime game. This is the first time since 1991 that we have scored 100 points against an ACC opponent in regulation. That was North Carolina, where we scored 101 points in February of '91. I want to say maybe it's been January. Um,
what's the did the media guide have the highest point total in program history somewhere lying
yes,
around?
we are still got a ways to get there. It is against Winthrop. We scored and Presbyterian. We scored 124 points against them in 1990 and 1985. So
Okay.
now in terms of now the thing is a lot of these games that are 100 plus points are against truly terrible teams and the throes of women's basketball years where like we were bad, but like there was the bad teams were like high school teams kind of level thing. The times we have scored 100 plus points in the 21st century, we scored 111 against Morris Brown in '02, 105 against Morgan State in 2014, uh, Portland State, we scored 104 in 2013. Mount St. Mary's, we scored 102 against in 2000. UTEP 102 in 2013. That Southeast Louisiana game was the most recent, November 2015. And then a game against Mercer in 2010, that Virginia game. And that's it. Most of these games that are in the 100-point category are pre 2000 still. Um, this is the fourth time we scored exactly 100. Last time was in 1998.
It's such a good team, and they play just a really, really effective brand of basketball. And now is start to where you start to get now start to where you get concerned about like, man, when is it? It's going to end at some point. It's like, when is it going to end, and
Well,
how
I
is it
mean,
going to
Notre Dame's
crumble?
yeah, Notre Dame's on the schedule. It's like wait, I'm in no way expecting us to win that game. Like that's still down the line.
No, I think
Um,
everyone is like, we all know what's going on here,
yeah.
right? There's a game versus Cuse that's on Thursday. That's on the 2nd of January. Cuse is 80th in the Torvik rankings. Virginia Tech is next after that the following Thursday. Virginia Tech is 51st in the Torvik rankings right
Hmm.
now, and Tech is obviously hefty favorites per those rankings above both of those. And then you get Louisville, and then you get Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And Louisville is
Yeah.
scuffling. So
But I mean, yeah, in a perfect world, in terms of just pure on paper, we win these next three games and the streak gets to 17, and then we
which is
go.
totally fine, by the way.
Well, hey, who
Look,
says
I'll
no?
take
Yeah,
as many as I can get.
right. No, I mean, go win them all. Like, absolutely. But yeah, Notre Dame will be the first like serious test. And that's on the road too, which is the second part. And I mentioned, I think 2 episodes ago, a lot of our important games are at home this year. Like we play NC State at home, we play Florida State at home. That Notre Dame game is on the road, and Miami's on the road. Miami has the Cavenders back, and they are out for blood this year, and they have been very good. I think Haley got ACC Player of the Week last year, so they are not bad. And we have to play at Stanford, which sucks. But all that to say, 14 wins is nuts. Like this is the 50th year of Tech women's basketball, and this is the first time they've gotten this far. And they've had schedules where and the thing is, like I think Kurt mentioned this 2 weeks ago too with us. Like they usually have to play Georgia in the middle of all this, and Georgia destroyed Tech for so many years that they try to get the game taken off the schedule because Georgia just didn't want to keep playing that game. Um, and it's a completely different story with Nell Fortner at the helm. They win that game pretty regularly. We have a Georgia player playing center and making a massive difference defensively for us right now in Zoe Smith, who came in as a grad transfer. So yeah, man. I mean, stuff's pointing up. That it's, I mean, yeah, we played some teams that aren't like amazing. It just happens, but you still gotta win a ball. We still beat three ranked teams, and not in our building. Only one of those was in our building. Uh,
A couple of those were in Hawaii.
yeah,
Was it Hawaii? Yeah, it was Hawaii.
yeah, we beat Oregon and Hawaii. That's right.
All
That's
right,
right.
so just to put all this in context in terms of the Torvik era for Nell Fortner. So let's say that Tech hits the 17 win mark before they go into Notre Dame. Okay. 17 wins. Tech had 17 wins all of last year. They finished the season 17 and 16.
Yep.
They finished 2021, a season in which they made the Sweet 16, albeit in a reduced schedule and tournament. I mean, it was a
Weird stuff.
different tournament
Weird stuff.
environment because of
Yeah.
COVID. They went 17 and 9. So it would be a massive achievement. It effectively guarantees you a tournament bid, barring a catastrophic end of like second half of the season. All
Right.
right.
Would yeah. Yeah. It would take at this point, seeing how they're playing, it will take some serious injury misfortune to cause that at this point. That
Knock
they're
on wood.
very infinitesimal that that happens. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the tempo thing, I think like we were talking about, and if listeners remember those first two Fortner teams coming out of the Michelle Joseph's era, and that just they had a lot of attacking or a defensive grit in terms of tempo in their national rankings. In 21, they were 340th, and also in 22, they were 340th. Their adjusted tempo ranking this year, they are 87th. So you can see the gradient and the improvement year over year as they make the shift, right? 340, 278, 149, 87, as they make this shift from being a very gritty defensive team, your soccer heads, your Diego Simeone try to win on the counter, limit the number of possessions in the game sort of thing, to now your Liverpool, your high flying, let's spread the ball around, speed and space kind of offensive attack
Yep.
in 2024, 2025. So um, I think again, we've been saying this. I think as soon as they hit 10 and 0 and try to sort of hit those games in which they'd really prove themselves as a top team, or as like a very competent team, the offensive revolution that we were promised a couple of years ago is in full swing. Like that
It's here.
culture is
Yeah.
set, right? And I mean, these athletes are playing so fluid. They understand each other really well. They understand spacing really well.
Yep.
They
And they
make
yeah.
again like I can make so many like soccer
Yeah.
references that are
Well,
not going to hit for anyone, but
let me narrow this down. Let me narrow this down. In the press conference, Dell, I mean, there was 2,100 people at the game today. There with no student, with like four students. Like there is no one on campus right now. This was 2,100 for the most part.
no, it's 2 days before
Yeah,
before the end
yeah,
of the year.
yeah. This was 2,100 paying customers before, say for the four students in the pep band that was there. Uh, they play the Nell made it quite clear. Like they play a very attractive brand of basketball, but they play a very high energetic and a very inviting. Like it's captivating to watch them play because they just move so quickly and they know each other so well and know what they're going to do. The mistakes are few and far between right now. It is beautiful basketball to watch.
And even when the games get gritty, they don't really change their strategy, right? They're not
No,
changing their offensive identity to adapt to the environment. And yes, like I think in some versus some opponents that might get a little frustrating. But in general, like when you're operating with that speed and space sort of mentality, and especially in games like versus Mississippi State and UNC and Nebraska, right? They just whether it's variance in these small samples
hmm
or like just the amount of effort that they're putting, I don't know, like whatever it is, they're just they know how to score points when it matters.
Yep, they do.
I
They
know it
do.
sounds dumb as like an analytics person, just saying, "Oh yeah, they score points, lol." But like they score points in bunches,
You guys,
in waves,
Danny
right?
Carnegie, watching Danny Carnegie just pull up and shoot a three. It's like, oh, if that's going in. It's so weird to just know we
And
have shots that are automatic on this team. It's so
and
weird.
at some point, like the magic is gonna end, right? Like the yellow brick road ends somewhere on this, but like for right now, this is fun.
Yeah,
Like it's a fun watch. It's a fun experience to
yeah,
go and sit there. And yes, they'll do the thing where they like jack up a half dozen threes in consecutive possessions, and that's super annoying sometimes. But then they'll drain three in a row in transition, and you'll be like, okay, I'm back in. I'm 100% back in. And it's really good.
yep, yep.
It's really,
It's
really
like that.
good. I think that's all I have to say on women's
Um,
basketball. I think we did it.
my
You know,
only,
we go for it.
yeah, I think my one goal right now is the Sunday, February 23. We play Florida State. That, if things go well, could be very consequential for seeding in the ACC tournament and stuff like that. Nell Fortner did throw out a lofty goal at the end of the press conference, and she wants to see McCamer sold out. Um, I think we all want the same. That is a Sunday afternoon game at 4 o'clock on the CW, so barely anyone's going to have access to this game anyways on television. That's going to be against
Uh,
Tanaya Lotson, who is one of the best ACC players out there. This is the best team that's going to come to McCamish this year. Um, if we're going to sell out a game, come to that one. If there is a game you are going to come to this year at McCamish Pavilion, come to the final game.
it's
It's
looking
the
at this
final home
record.
game. NFL season is over by this point. There is no football to be watched. This is the throes of the
And it's
worst part of the sport.
before soccer starts. It's the
Before
week before.
before Atlanta United starts, there is this is the sport going on at the moment is college basketball and hockey and midseason hockey and midseason basketball if you care. But this is the game to come to. Come to this game if you're going to come to any of them. Come to all of them, obviously, but some are not as able to go to as other ones. But this is the one. Is that Florida State game? I think if we, I mean, honestly, we should. This team is good enough to deserve breaking the attendance record that they have on hand, which is like 7,000 or something when UConn came and played some years ago. So yeah, they got the team to do it. They got the team to make. They at least have the team to make to be a real problem no matter who they play in any tournament that comes ahead of them. So showing up matters. Showing up matters. That was this was as loud as I've heard McCamish in a while for the women.
The funniest part about this, I mean, there's a lot of, it's not really funny. It's just like looking at it and just like laughing because you can't really comprehend how outrageous it sounds. Is that Tech's projected record on the Torvik page is 27-3.
Those three
They're
losses are to
15
probably
and 3.
those losses are probably just to Notre Dame, Florida State, and Stanford.
They are actually favored in two of those three.
Oh,
The Notre Dame game, I mean, per the efficiency
right,
metrics,
right, right, right.
they're an 11-point dog at Notre Dame. They
Okay,
are
that makes sense.
8-point favorite at home versus Florida State, and now a
Okay,
6-point favorite away to Stanford.
that's right. They're having a weird
Um,
year. Oh, is the Miami game
Duke.
on the? Oh, it's
Duke is
Duke.
interesting.
Okay,
Duke is interesting. That's a 5-point favorite
okay.
hosting Duke.
Yep, yep.
Miami, I don't think the models have really adjusted for Miami's growth,
Got it. Okay.
right? And their competitiveness. I mean, the Tech's still favored by 14. Um, there's still some like there's still some trap games. There's still some skid marks, and obviously we've talked to death about that last 4 game set being incredibly difficult, right?
Yep.
Because Cal is competent, so it's NC State and Florida State as the final home set, and then
Mm,
the California swing
yep.
of Cal and Stanford to end the year away. Um, and the Cal point margin is actually really close. It's only a 3-point favorite.
Interesting. Yep.
So, but the only game that is under 60% projected win expectancy um, is that Notre Dame game,
Yep. That checks out.
16%,
They got Olivia
which is
Miles.
Notre Dame.
They and Hannah Hidalgo. They're freaking amazing. Like they're
But
supposed to be good.
the nerds are pretty convinced that Tech is in every single one of these games.
Oh, I agree. No,
Uh,
I mean they're playing that way. They play with an offensive ability to keep they shoot the lights out of the ball. It is. they can do that, and they have the defense to back it up too, which is the thing. Like it's not like how I've complained about Hawks basketball. They can score 120 points, but they can also allow 150 at a drop of a hat.
Well, here's
That
the problem. In the NBA, they don't play defense.
yes,
As I grow a luscious white beard
you
and
should
start growing more gray hairs
you should watch
and
some
put on
Dyson
my
Daniels.
old man hat.
You should watch some
Yeah.
Dyson Daniels highlights. It's pretty damn good. Anyways,
But
but
he's the only person that plays defense. The rest of that
the
team doesn't play defense.
Tech's defense is there. Like today, I mean, Dell's quote today was like this was a critical turn defense into offense kind of game, and they forced 21 turnovers and scored like 25 points off turnovers. That's
High
how you win
turnovers.
basketball games. You can win basketball games pretty easily if you do that. I got nothing else on this team. Go watch the game.
They still haven't posted a game score under 90 or under 91, by the way. Still cooking. Still
Game is next game
cooking.
is Thursday against Syracuse. I forgot to add that. That is come to that. Come to that.
Thursday, January 2nd, 7 p.m. tip versus Syracuse. That will be on ACC Network Extra. And then the week after, they will be hosting Virginia Tech. I don't think I didn't pull up the TV information for that, but they will be hosting Virginia Tech on the 9th. I think that's about it for us today. We talked a lot of football. We talked a lot of women's basketball. We spent the bare minimum amount of time on other programs. Jack, I think that's it for today. Thank you for joining me. Where can the people find us?
Man, this was a long one, but a good one. We are at fromtherumbleseat.com, where you can find where I'm doing coverage. Me and Maggie Doster are doing women's basketball coverage. We'll have baseball stuff starting up. I think we're gonna have a nice new face for baseball this year if all things go to plan. Um, we're gonna have some softball coverage. Football's done, so we might have some postmortem stuff there. But we're about done with football coverage there. You can email us at any time with questions, comments, concerns at fromtherumbleseat@gmail.com. Or if you want to write for us, I would love to have someone help us write about softball or tennis or golf because those sports are very good at Tech and they deserve a lot of coverage. So you can come let us know if you want to do that with us. You can find us on Twitter at FTRSblog or on Blue Sky, same handle at FTRSblog. Blue Sky, it's way more fun. Jake's not here today, but he's at Jake Grant 98. I am at Jack Nicholas. Nicolaus. You can find Section 103 on Twitter at Section 103 or Section103.com. This podcast is posted wherever podcasts are sold or on YouTube, so you can find it there pretty easily. And we post everything to Facebook, Blue Sky, and Twitter. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening, y'all. Go to the basketball games.